A brutal Canucks road trip comes to a crashing halt in Seattle as they fall 6-3 to the Kraken. Way more questions than answers about this team with just one game left before the trade deadline. Lots to get to. This is Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside the Rink Wide Vancouver studios on a Saturday night that sees the Vancouver Canucks go quietly into the Seattle night with a 6-3 loss to the Kraken, their I-5 rivals. There's a lot of offense in this hockey game, unfortunately, most of it winding up at the back of the Vancouver Canucks net. 6-3, they go 1-4 on the road trip, and we are here to talk about this, the trip, the trade deadline, and maybe some even bigger picture questions around this hockey club. Farhan Lalji of TSN back with us for a second straight Saturday. Rink Wide brought to you in part by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you open an account. Farhan, as you can imagine, the YouTube live stream, the chat is off the charts and off the rails at the same time. A lot of people with a lot to say. If you want to get your comments read here on Rink Wide, you know the drill by now. Hit us up with a super chat. Our charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. I'm Jeff Pettersson here in the Rink Wide studio. Farhan in his home studio, joining us remotely. And Farhan, it looked decent to start. In fact, maybe more zone time than we've seen in a while from the Vancouver Canucks. Another second period lead. That was a theme throughout this road trip. In fact, they had a second period lead in all 5 games and flushed them, except for the game in Los Angeles that they salvaged with the overtime winner in the 3-2 victory over the Kings. But a dreadful road trip. We thought maybe the other night against Anaheim was the worst, but kind of felt like the bottom fell out again. And so saying that in a game that you kind of felt they had to have, almost feels like this one maybe is rock bottom.
Well, probably. And look, Jeff, first of all, I don't know why you're so negative, because they did score 3 goals, right? And we don't see a lot of that. So that's a big deal for this game, no doubt. And who would have thought that if you would have picked this team to go 1-4 on this trip, that the one game they would have won against Los Angeles, right? You dropped all the other ones to teams that are certainly not as good as the Kings. And disappointing, because truly the Canucks outplayed Seattle. I thought in all 3 periods, even when they were outscored 3-1 in the second, I thought they did a lot of good things in that period. And in the third period, they won a lot of zone time. You know, they enter the period with a 1-goal deficit. And I thought they pushed, right? I mean, look, this Canuck team isn't skilled enough offensively to create a ton of high danger chances. But they had some zone time and they had some chances, if not high dangers, that I thought, you know, they were very close, right? Right, they had a lot of opportunities to tie the game. Then they took the penalty, right? Kind of a needless penalty by Elias Pettersson near the offensive blue line, and then right after the penalty, they wound up scoring with the slap shot from just inside the circle from who took the slap shot?
Brand
and he's got a heavy one, right? And
yep.
And when you look at the other thing that stood out in this game also is 3 deflected goals, right? Goals 2, 3, and 4. Deflected goals for a variety of reasons. I didn't think Artur Shilov's played poorly. I don't know that you blame him for any of those goals. So, but at the end of the day, they lose 6-3 and they're 1-4 in the trip. Sorry,
Kevin
I meant Kevin Lankinen.
At times looked like Artur Shilov's, but all those deflection goals that you talked about, obviously those are difficult for a goaltender to stop. You know, I always look for turning points and moments in a hockey game. This is a night that the Vancouver Canucks get 3 goals in the first half of the game. This team that has been so offensively challenged, starved to score goals, their third goal is a shorthanded goal. Like, that should have been a turning point in this game to establish a 3-2 lead, and that lead lasted all of 4 minutes, and then the Kraken got 2 in a minute apart, so really gone in 60 seconds. The Beniers goal and then Tolvanen, the 2 deflections, and it goes from 3-2 Canucks to 4-3 Seattle, and that's how it stood after 2 periods. And this has been part of this road trip, Farhan. The Vancouver Canucks got outscored 9-0 in third periods. Wow. 5 tight games that were really essentially 1-goal games at some point in each of those third periods. and the Vancouver Canucks didn't generate a single third-period goal on the road trip. They got outscored 18-10 on the trip overall and 9-0 in third periods of the last 5 games.
Yeah, look, you can't run from that. And I said earlier that I thought they did some good things in this third period. We've seen so many thirds this year where they have just gone meekly into the night. And I was surprised to hear Shorty on the broadcast talk about Joey Decord with the second best goals against average or save percentage, I should say, in the third period of hockey games. And the Canucks just, they don't find ways. They haven't done it at any point this year. Enter a third period with a deficit and come out of it with a victory. Like, that just doesn't happen for this team because they just don't have enough offensively to generate. And, there were just moments in this game where, it kind of got away from him. And you look at that second period, just a beautiful finish on a 2-on-1, short-handed for him. And that was the type of goal that we've seen from Dakota Joshua a year ago. And I thought this might have been one of the best games I've seen him play this season, right? He was really, really noticeable at all ends of the ice. He was a little heavier than we used to seeing him play. But that control it with a guy on his back and be able to go forehand to backhand and deke it and give Vancouver a lead. And really, Seattle did have the momentum prior to that goal. And then, right after that, you mentioned 4 minutes later, Matty Beniers is left all alone in front of the net. Elias Pettersson loses the draw cleanly and then should lock on, but he doesn't. He just does a flyby, and he's kind of lost in space, and there's nobody around him, and he gets an easy deflection for the goal, right? I mean, they don't get much easier. You talk about tying up sticks. No one's near him to tie up a stick, right? And then, after that, an unfortunate goal to make it 4-3. Pulling in with Quinn Hughes with his stick that broke behind the net, right? I mean, that was a tough break for them. And then Bluger leaves his man, goes to Hughes's man, and then, Shark is left all alone for another deflection, right? So just poor reads, poor in-zone coverage leads to at least 2 of those 3 deflected goals. And, to this game. And like I said, I thought the Canucks did a lot well, but those were a few moments. We thought this team had tightened up. We talked after the Anaheim game about how they struggled to defend off the rush. There was only one off the rush goal in this game. It was the first one. The rest of them were all, in-zone type of plays, and that's where they've been better, but they weren't tonight.
Right, and I think this is part of the problem that we've been wondering, all right, where's the offense supposed to come from? Is it the players? Is it the coach? Is it the system? All of those questions. Through all of that, and for much of this road trip, there was this notion that, all right, like since they made the JT Miller trade, they've sort of solidified their defense. Defense is starting to take shape. Quinn Hughes is back. Defense isn't going to be the problem. And then look what happens. They give up 5 the other night. They outdo themselves, and they give up 6 here against the Seattle Kraken. So that's a huge consideration. They're seeing the Ducks again on Wednesday, and there are no easy games in the National Hockey League, and certainly no easy games for the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the problem tonight, and look, this is both short-term and big picture. Quinn Hughes so clearly not 100%, laboring again. All those shots at the bench of him stretching his torso and twisting and turning, looking like he's in pain. And you mentioned the broken stick play. That's unfortunate. But he and Filip Hronek are on the ice for 3 of the first 4 Seattle goals. Like, that just doesn't happen. When Quinn Hughes is dialed and 100%, his best defense is spending the entire night in the offensive zone, zipping around and making other guys look foolish. I thought, and I want to preface it by saying, I think Filip Hronek has been terrific for the last month or so. I don't know what happened tonight. This was the toughest night that he's had in quite some time. The 1-0 goal, didn't love the way that he defended, even though that's a great shot by Burakovsky and an even better pass by Shane Wright. But then the 2-2 goal, he just lets Bjorkstrand drift, and he's nowhere to be found. Hughes has trouble in the corner. Shane Wright comes in, grabs the puck, gets it back to Montour, and Bjorkstrand reads it perfectly. And as Filip Hronek leaves the front of the net, Bjorkstrand's there to tip home the tying goal. At that point, tying goal made it 2-2. I don't know. I mean, guys are allowed to have off nights. It happens. It's a long season, and it's tough to play at your highest level 82 times a season. But it was a tough go for Filip Hronek and Quinn Hughes, something that we just don't say very often.
Yeah, Hronek -4, team worst -4, and Quinn Hughes -3, and we just don't see that ever, right? Like, we on the ice for the number of goals we saw him on the ice for, and that was all in the first 40 minutes of the game because, I'm shocked to see that Quinn Hughes played close to 22 minutes in this game because it felt like he didn't see the ice at all in the third period. Canucks pulled their goalie with 3:33 to go. He's not in. I think they were smart not to play him because he was mentioned all those shots. I think it began after that Bjorkstrand first goal that tied the game at 2. And, we see him going slowly, like he picked himself up off the ice slowly, made his way to the bench slowly, and then we started seeing those shots. So I got to be honest, man, like this team's got some decisions to make, right, with how they're going to handle this player. Say what you want. I mean, we've talked about the fact that the next 2 years are all about doing everything humanly possible to make sure Quinn Hughes signs with this team. Consider that the guy's missed 4 weeks of action, right? Like he missed time before the tournament, missed the tournament, then missed the first 2 games coming out of the tournament. It was a game time game. I thought they shouldn't have played him in back-to-back games. It just didn't seem like the prudent thing to do coming out. Now he's feeling it right now. They really, do they need to pull him back? Do they need to shut him down for a period of time? Like, I understand what the stakes are, but the stakes are a really bad hockey team might make the playoffs in the first round, or they might not, right? So as we talk about this club making decisions for the trade deadline on Friday, I think the biggest decision they've got to make is how they've got to handle Quinn Hughes right now, because he's clearly not right. And, you can't put this player in that situation. Any core muscle group injury, this is serious stuff. These things turn into, tears and,
Absolutely.
we've seen this. We've seen this with a ton of different players before. You can't take that chance of a sports hernia or some sort of torn muscle in that region because that'll affect the player for an extended period of time. With this guy, they need to be incredibly careful. They were in the third period. They need to think big picture with this player right now.
A bunch of days off. They don't play again until Wednesday. I would imagine Sunday's a full team day off at the end of a road trip and then get back at it Monday, and that's certainly going to be worth monitoring. Is Quinn Hughes part of the practice group? Is Thatcher Demko back? So there are injury issues and questions around this hockey club, but just to underscore the point, Quinn Hughes was on the ice for 4 of the Anaheim goals the other night and 3 in this hockey game, so 7 goals against. He goes months where he's not on the ice for 7 goals against, and that just tells you that this guy, he's trying to get it out. He's trying to help the hockey club, but he's nowhere close to 100%. And I am so with you that they have some really difficult decisions to make here with that player for the long term, his long-term health, not just the team's long-term outlook, but their star player, their meal ticket. They got to get this one right. And we know that there are questions around the medical staff and some of the decisions that they have made with players in recent years. So delicate situation, but certainly one that is going to be top of mind. Lots of people in the chat.
But just think about this. Overall, big picture, it is fascinating to see what's happened to this team from an injury standpoint this year versus last year. It is remarkable. Like, polar opposites on every level. And I can't think of teams that go through this in this level of extreme in a 2-year cycle, right? Where a year where it was incredible good health, except for the goaltending down the stretch and into the playoffs. And now there is anything but good health for every key player on this team.
Well, and you're spot on there, and I'm glad you brought that up. There's so many polar opposites, and health is... You're nothing without health, obviously, and so health played into the career seasons that so many guys had last year, and here we are now as they spin their wheels. Again, amazingly, with 1 win in 4 games, or 5 games on this road trip, 1 in 4 road trip, they stay above the playoff bar for another night. They're not going to last there long at this rate, but Calgary lost, Utah lost, St. Louis did win, and so St. Louis has played its way back into the mix. The Canucks, by the way, 27, 22, and 11 now. They have reached the 60-game mark for Iran. So 60 games down, 22 remaining, and the road record is 16, 12, and 4. And a trip like this one certainly is going to eat into a lot of the goodwill that they had done earlier in the season, where that road record was propping them up, given all the problems that they had on home ice. So the Canucks with 65 points, Calgary and St. Louis at 64, Utah has 63. Master Troll in the chat says, this show is my happy place. Well, look, we hope that we can bring even a little bit of joy to Canuck fans because the team itself not providing much. Cameron
3 goals, says, Jeff. 3 goals.
3 goals, I know. Cameron Moore asks, is Aquilini that desperate to make a quick $4 million the guy's a billionaire. Play the long game, and I think that's talking about is it worth sliding into that final playoff spot and getting swallowed up by Winnipeg or Vegas and spat right out. And
this is going to be 2006, Jeff. It's going to be 2006. This to get in. You saw the teams that lost tonight. And when I think about that year and the Canucks missed and the Oilers got in and they weren't hot. You know, we always talk about you can be that hot team that makes it in the 8-hole and give the number one seed a run for its money. And they were not good. They snuck into the playoffs and they got it to Game 7 of a Stanley. That's what we're looking for here. A turtle derby to get in. And maybe not.
All right. I'll give you that one. Sure. Super chat from Tyler Gibbs. Should they look at a goaltender in unrestricted free agency in the offseason? They just re-signed Kevin Lankinen. He was not great tonight. But as we said, guys aren't going to be at their very best every single night. The questions remain around Thatcher Demko and his health and well-being short and long-term here. But I don't think they need help. I think that they have sort of solidified their goaltending by locking up Lankinen. So I think goalies would be way down on the list. They may draft one to get another young guy in the system. But I think they're throwing their free agent chips up front, trying to find some guys that can put the puck in the net with some sort of regularity. Nar in the chat says, silver lining, better the team poops their pants now than after the deadline. I suppose to some degree, if they had gone on a little mini hot streak coming out of the break and that had altered management's view on things and they had gone all in and then the house of cards collapsed. So yes, maybe there are a few people that are saying, like, look, it's laid bare now. This team has to be a seller that if you can't beat Anaheim and you can't beat Seattle, ultimately, who are you going to beat? And again, we did this exercise on Sakaris and Price the other day. Hockey math is pretty simple with 22 games to go. I mean, the Canucks probably need 14 of 22 games. I think they're going to go 14-8 the rest of the way. That seems like a big ask.
No, but do they really, right? Like when you look at the teams around them, I understand where basically the points usually fall for the number 8 team that gets into the playoffs. But what if this is one of those years where 88 or 89 points get you in?
Okay, and then they still need to go 13. They still need to go 13-9. So you're asking them to win 13 of their final 22 games to get to 91 points. They got to win. That's the bottom line, and they haven't done much of that. So it really doesn't matter who their opponent is, where their opponent sits in the standings. They get the Ducks again on Wednesday. You saw what the Ducks dismantled them earlier this week. So, like, the Canucks should be motivated.
Jeff, we needed to get back. We needed to just rewind this whole thing and just eliminate the Four Nations tournament. Remember all that cheering for Team Canada? If you're a fan out there, like, could you imagine the worst possible thing for the Vancouver Canucks, who were 6-1-1, going into that break, coming out of it now at 1-4, for all the joy we got across this country, wasn't good for the Vancouver Canucks.
I thought you were going to take us back to a happier time before Four Nations when the Canucks were 6-1-1 going into the break. The good times were rolling. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. If we had eliminated the break, they could have continued that.
Yeah, but then we would have missed out on McDavid scoring the winner, and we will always have that far end. So
he's an Oiler.
For a night, we were allowed to cheer for him. I want to get to the 3 stars in this hockey game. 3 stars are a presentation to Gretabar YVR. 3 stars in the building, clean sweep for the Kraken, no problem with that. Brandon Montour, the number 1 star, Shane Wright, and Eli Tolvanen, who again was picked up on waivers. What were the Nashville Predators thinking? The guy's got 18 goals now on the season. That's a nice pickup for the Seattle Kraken, and the Nashville Predators could probably use some goal scoring. Our 3 stars are a little bit different. I was just really impressed with Shane Wright. The play that he makes on the opening goal, his speed to just pull away from Pius Suter, who's not the fastest guy in the world, but that was apparent in the neutral zone. This guy's 20 years old. I know he was a 4th overall pick, so he's got some offensive chops. The backhanded sauce, though, and to put it in the wheelhouse of Burakovsky on the rush, like, that was big time by Shane Wright. He also had another assist on the Bjorkstrand goal. So he's been their leading scorer since the start of December. It looks like he's certainly passed Matty Beniers. I know Beniers scored. But Shane Wright just looks dangerous every time he's out there with his speed. So he's the 1st star here on Rink Wide. Brandon Montour, 2nd star, And I'm throwing a bone to Dakota Joshua. I thought he was skating well. He was effective. Nice hands on the shorthanded goal. There's been some signs of life from him where others have been fading away here of late. This is a good sign, but they need more from Joshua. They need more from a bunch of guys. But on this night, I thought Dakota Joshua, I thought Kiefer Sherwood, some of the guys that play with a little snarl at times, I thought they were among the best Vancouver Canucks. So there are the 3 stars here on Rink Wide. Wright, Montour, and Joshua. 3 stars are brought to you by Gretabar YVR. We always talk about it, and for good reason. It's a terrific place to watch a game. I'm sure there was some jump at Greta early in this hockey game, and then probably some disappointment later in the night as the Kraken pulled away. But we always tell you about the arcade games and the street food menu, the weekly drink specials. It is all there. Great atmosphere for any sporting event. Greta Bar, the place to be. 50 West Cordova. Greta Bar, let the games begin. Ryan T says, the only thing great about this game is that now for sure the Canucks will be sellers, not buyers, having no illusions or fantasies about this being a playoff contending team worth mortgaging the future over. Outside of the 3 goals that they did score, and we liked those, Suter, a career high for him, 16. Great work by Kiefer Sherwood, just relentless on the forecheck. And Höglander got in as well to force the turnover. Suter knows where the net is. He scored in back-to-back games, up to 16 on the season. Hedl, we talked about Quinn Hughes breaking his stick. The point shot from Myers that broke a stick on its way to the net, and that allowed Hedl to grab the puck and fire it home. His 13th of the season, second as a Canuck, and then the Joshua goal. So we don't have to go deep because there weren't a ton of highlights from the Vancouver Canucks in this hockey game. But what did you like, or who did you like from the Canucks on this game on this night?
Well, he stood out to me for a number of 3 periods. I noticed him early in on the forecheck. I noticed him defending down low. Right, there was a lot to like in his game, and again, the shorthanded goal was big, but I just thought overall he was really noticeable, and we just haven't seen enough of him. And it's hard for a big man like that to go into hiding. We know it's been a difficult year for him, but I thought he was good. I thought Connor the other night, I thought he was the Energizer Bunny again. Noticeable. He was generating, had some chances in the 3rd period. Liked what I saw there. I thought Brock Besser defended well, and I know you need him to score goals. I get it, but there was a lot of positive, I thought, to his game. Those are probably the 3. Just a weird game not seeing Quinn Hughes out there a lot in the 3rd period and in key situations. And, they pull the goaltender, Derek Forbert's on the ice. And I'm thinking, what world is this? Derek Forbert's playing. This team's down a goal or 2 goals, and Quinn Hughes isn't playing. And I understood why. But those are the others. You mentioned Kiefer Sherwood as well. But I thought those were the types of players that we saw. We still don't see a lot from 40. Jake DeBrusk, I thought, was relatively quiet tonight. But, at the end of the day, when you get into a 3rd period situation and you start generating some offense and you start generating some chances, you need your best players to be at the end. Expect role players to come up with key goals at key times in games, and the Canucks don't have that right now. One of them's hurt, and the other's kind of invisible.
Yeah. I thought Drew O'Connor as well. I mean, the nice setup to Joshua. He had the nice setup to Tyler Myers the other night. This is a guy that wasn't expected to produce a ton of offense, but in the absence of others, and the speed always is noticeable. Again, we'll throw him a bone too. I thought, but when you're right, when we're digging to get to 3rd-line guys as the best players on the Vancouver Canucks, it's probably not going to end well for the team, and it didn't in a 6-3 loss. Back-to-back losses to finish up the road trip, a couple of days off, as we said, and then 4-game homestand. Anaheim on Wednesday, a 7:30 start, by the way. Just note that. Minnesota is in after the trade deadline on Friday. First look at Dallas here in Vancouver this season, and then the Montreal Canadiens. So a 4-game homestand for the Vancouver Canucks starting on Wednesday. All right. I mean, we always leave time on this program. It's like its own little segment. Elias Pettersson. Another just
well, speaking of
night.
which, I missed Elias Pettersson, who didn't get a chance to play in this game as they went back to 12-6. Arshdeep Bains got in, and we both have been fans of his play. There's generally kind of that one play. Okay, he's a kid, but that's it. I mean, generally he's been rock solid for this team. So to not have him, you wonder what the deployment would have looked like if he'd been in. But let's talk about the other guy.
Well, hang on. No, because you went down that road. Yes, Arshdeep Bains got in. The bigger question, though, was
Didn't play
if
much.
they went to 6D, who was coming out? And yes, DPD comes out of the lineup very clearly trying to get Carson Soucy a game ahead of the trade deadline here, try to showcase him. He broke up the play that led to the shorthanded goal. Yeah, it was sort of team gave up 6. I don't think any of the defenders played particularly well. But I don't think Soucy was at the top of the list. We talked about the guys that really struggled in this hockey game. But a curious decision nonetheless. And DPD is going to have a long career. He doesn't have to play every single game, but I do think that he is one of their six best defensemen right now. So it was notable that they brought him out. They allowed Soucy to stay in the lineup because we've seen Soucy be a healthy scratch a couple of times here in the last few weeks. The other piece to this farhand, and I don't want to go too deep here, but Victor Mancini got into one game in Utah last Sunday night. Young players, I just don't think it serves them well to sit in the NHL. They like the NHL paycheck. I get that. But if there's no room for him in the lineup, and he's certainly behind DPD, I know he's a right side guy. Let's see if Soucy gets through the trade deadline here. But I would think you'd want Victor Mancini playing hockey somewhere, and he can shuttle between Vancouver and Abbotsford, no waiver issues. So I wonder if they keep him around on the big league roster here for a whole lot longer. You just want guys to be playing in those situations.
Yeah, you do. And I think the club will want to get a longer look at him. I don't think he's going to get buried anytime soon here. However, for my money, if Quinn Hughes is going to continue to be in the lineup, you better continuously be in the habit of dressing 7 defensemen, right? Like Arshdeep Bains, some odd minutes, like that's just not value. Go play a 7th defenseman so that if Hughes needs to sit or play less or just play offensive zone faceoffs or just play on the power play or whatever it happens to be, okay, but you need to make sure that the rest of your back end is a little more fortified because I think you get more value out of a 7th defenseman right now forward.
All right, now we get to Elias Pettersson. And I know you sort of mentioned Brock Besser as one of the guys that stood out. Neither Brock Besser nor Elias Pettersson had a shot on goal in this hockey game. They played together on line with Dakota Joshua. Joshua's goal came shorthanded, so it didn't come at evens on that line. Elias Pettersson, 16 minutes and 14 seconds of ice time, took the penalty that didn't result in the power play goal. It came 3 seconds after he stepped out of the penalty box.
No, it did. It did result in the power play goal. It wasn't a power play goal, but
fair enough. It came at the tail end of his. Yes, he was on the
pressure,
ice, but
if they're not killing off a penalty.
So Pettersson's night, 16-14 of ice time, no shots on goal, did have 4 attempts, got crushed in the faceoff circle, and there was a play in the first period on power play late in the first period. Pettersson again looked to be in a prime shooting opportunity, had the puck, corralled it, and plays just die on his stick. It's a regular thing now. And his road trip, Farhan, he had 1 assist in 5 games. So this hope of the 4 Nations, that didn't go so well. Then it was, all right, like he's got that out of the way. He's back to his team now. JT Miller's not here. This is his pathway forward. And in 5 games since the 4 Nations, he had 1 assist. He set up Jake DeBrusk for a goal in Utah.
But Jeff, the Leafs game, that was the catalyst. That was the turning point. And it's funny. I wonder when we stop talking about it. Because it is the elephant in the room. And I'm trying to think of when we stopped talking about Louis Eriksson, right? And look, if Pettersson doesn't get traded in June and comes back in the fall, everybody's got to put the reset button on, including us, right? And expect that he will have had a good offseason like a professional and in good shape and ready to compete and give him every opportunity to be that guy again at the start of the season. And I wonder what at what point, because there was a point probably late in the second year, late in the third year, I should say, with Louis, where we just kind of stopped talking about it, right? Nothing was going to change. And I think this year, nothing will change for Pettersson. It's just not going to happen for him. He's going to need a complete reset. He's going to need an offseason. He's going to need, a real training regimen in the offseason. What he's doing currently isn't working. How much of that is health? How much of that is just him? I don't know, but it didn't have. You need removal from this situation. I just can't see any scenario where all of a sudden he's going to flip the switch this year. There's been multiple opportunities. You laid them all out, right? Different touch points where we thought that, okay, this is the opportunity to flip it. Hasn't happened. So I think they got to move on, right? And how do you approach that? If the reality is, if you're thinking of moving them, you're not going to get anything for them at the deadline, right? Like, you're just not.
No.
You're going to have to make this decision in the offseason in June. That's just the way it's going to have to be. So it's tough, right? Because they're going to enter this offseason massive leap of faith. So is Petey going to be Huberto 2.0, right? Where the numbers just fall off a cliff and they stay off a cliff. And then this year there's just tiny signs of life and you think, okay, he's back, but he's really not. Or, does he turn it around next season? Because if you don't, a giant leap of faith in either direction, in either direction. So, I went on a different podcast earlier in the week, and I feel that with what we're seeing and the length of time with which we're seeing it, me personally, I've kind of given up. And for the beginning of this season and into Christmas, I really thought there was it was coming back. It was coming back, but it's been 13 months. And I don't know that tendonitis could cause a player to fall off a cliff like this for 13 months. It baffles me. And then there are other things. And I get people on Canucks say to me that you guys got so bent out of shape about his comments about being annoyed with the media, with the IMAC interview. And I don't care if PD doesn't like the media. I don't care if PD doesn't like me. It's not about me not liking PD or anything like that. This is just me when you make a comment like he did, because remember the context of this, right? For people who don't know, the context of that comment was Rick Tocchet said to Ian McIntyre, unsolicited, he questioned Pettersson's confidence. McIntyre respectfully waited for the media to be around. Not that there ever are any on the road, but the Canucks TV camera got rid of it, and it was just the two of them. And he asked him about confidence, and Pettersson stopped, thought for 5 or 6 seconds, looked IMAC in the eye, and made that comment. So it wasn't just kind of something he really thought about. And if that's kind of what you're thinking in these moments, as opposed to trying to take a level of accountability, that concerns me. That concerns me in my belief that this player can get it back. So I made a comment that I think at some point this guy's going to get bought out. Now, I know some contracts are meant to get, I don't mean he's going to get bought out tomorrow, but at some point in year 5 or ish of the contract, if this doesn't get better, and I don't have a lot of faith that it will, whichever team he's playing for is going to have to make that hard decision well down the road. But this is tough. This is tough because how long?
Well, I mean, there's just so much to dig into, and I was getting into a back and forth with a bunch of guys on social earlier in the day, and they're backing Elias Pettersson, and they believe that there is a comeback and a second act and all that kind of stuff. And I know there's a better player in there than he has shown. I just don't get how a guy goes to 0. And so, yes, speed bursts are down. He's still skating. He's out there on the ice. Alex Ovechkin doesn't get around the ice, and Ovechkin's scoring goals at a crazier rate than he ever has in his career. It's not just the point totals that are so far off. It's all those other things. It's the lack of shoots, the lack of shots, the reluctance to shoot, the speed burst, the shot velocity, on and on it goes. So, you can look at other guys that have fallen off a cliff, but it's not just points to me. So is it confidence? How come he can't just take it upon himself over the course of a game? Just say, I'm going to get 3 shots tonight. Modest total, 3 shots on goal. But he's just so reluctant to shoot the puck right now. I mean, look.
There's nothing there. There's no, and even said he plays well defensively. He didn't tonight. He didn't.
No. So these are the facts now.
So
Farhan, he scored 2 goals in the game before Christmas against San Jose. But he scored 2 goals. He's gone 14 without a goal and has 1 goal in 20 games now since Christmas. So
that's shocking.
He has twice as many goals in the 1 game against San Jose on December 23rd than he has in 20 games since then. And you wonder, how come the Canucks can't win all these close games? It's because it's almost like they're playing without a forward on most nights here. And like, what a goal.
Yeah,
a goal. Just asking for a goal. What it could do in all these tight games.
I want to see a high danger scoring chance. Like, I just settle for that. And we're not even seeing that. And in the third period, when you are trailing, you need your best player to be engaged, to be attempting to win the team, to be attempting to be right. Like, that player should feel an incredible amount of pressure. And I'm sure he does, right? But he should be playing like it. And we've talked about body language among other things. And we're not talking about in the dressing room with the media. We're talking about on the ice. There's just no fire, no passion, no pulse to his game at all. He should be to beat players and take it upon himself to carry this team. But he's not attempting it. It's not that he's not doing it successfully. He's not even attempting it. And so to watch him, it's like the hockey version of the yips. What does getting it back look like for Pettersson? You think he's going to be a 100-point player next year? You really think that? Like, getting it back might be getting to 60 points. Like, that would be an amazing year for Pettersson next year coming off of this one. We'd be grading on a curve, and within the context, it ain't worth 11.6, but that would be amazing if he could be a point, 3 points in every 4 game type of player, because there's nothing there right now. So people have asked me, what do you think? I said, he might get to 60 again as a Canuck. He might get to 70 if he's on another team. This guy's not going to be a 100-point player again. I just don't see it, because if it was just one element of his game, it's everything. And I think years, and I think when that happens to a player, it will invariably come back, right? That you'll get into your own head at different times, and you can't be that guy when you're 11.6. You can't be that guy and be a 100-point player. There has to be a consistency to your game, a consistency to your desire to dominate. Even if you're not dominating, you have to have, it's not there.
A bunch of super chats that I want to get to here. And again, all supporting the BC Mental Health Foundation. So we thank you. Tyler says, shut PD down for the rest of the season. I don't think they're going to shut him down.
I've heard that from others.
I've seen other people say sit him out for a game or two.
It's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched. If you are finally ready, J-Pat, you could shut down Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, and Thatcher Demko right now, and you wouldn't be wrong to do so. If you make the right decision on this season, okay, and you want to completely get these guys in the best position possible for next, you could shut Quinn Hughes down. You could take Pettersson and say, okay, look, we're going to give you 2 months to just rest your knee, cut the excuses, rest your knee, rest your mind, get rid of the tendonitis. Then when the season is over for everybody else, you should then be in a position where you can now, right, like rest it, get rid of the pain, and then you've got a full off season to strengthen, rehab, and really get your training to a certain point, and you'll be able to hit the ground running next year, and it'll put you in the best possible position. I'm telling you, you're getting nothing out of the player right now. He is replacement level. It's not a far-fetched idea, but it's not stupid to suggest it should happen. And same thing with Quinn Hughes. Like, do not take a chance with what he's dealing with right now. It's not an awful idea, but you'd have to concede that you're not getting into the playoffs.
Casey Shuffle says, Tocchet management have killed off and traded away all the talent from this team. How did all the top scorers and talent die under this one coach? And
this is ridiculous.
No, I know. I keep talking about, like, Quinn, he hasn't neutered Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes has found a way to be productive under this coach. And the people that come up with that never have an answer for why Quinn's able to be productive, but nobody else can. So I'm still waiting.
But look at last year. These players played out of their minds under the same coach. And then coming into this season, what was the talk at the start of the year and in training camp? It was all about, we're going to try to skate and generate chances off the rush. We're going to try to create more offense. We're going to play the game differently. And it was disastrous at the start of the season because they forgot how to play defense, right? And you know, their blue line wasn't good, right? Some things have changed to make it better, but between the blue line personnel issues and, you know, them not bringing, you know, their staples, so then he had to go back to focus on defense first. But answer me how all these guys were so good offensively under the same coach last year, and you all heard the same coach talk about how he wanted to play offensively this year. And we hear him every game talking to players about moving their feet, get to the middle of the ice, all of those things. Like, you go, Jeff. They don't sit here and practice dump and chase. Like, they don't practice defensive style. Like, I don't get it.
But, okay, and I'm with you, and I have defended Tocchet to a point, but they're at the 60-game mark, Farhan. We know that they're jacking ticket prices for next year. If this team falls short of the playoffs, can you sell this coach, this system, to this fan base for another season?
I don't know that you can. Look, I'm not sure, and this is not insider. This is just opinion. Difficult time seeing Pettersson and Tocchet both here next year. I'm struggling with it. I truly am. Yeah. We know that there's a frustration there, right? Like Rick has said it. He has every right to be frustrated with Pettersson's play. We understand how Pettersson prefers to be coached. I don't think Pettersson's. I think Rick Tocchet is a very good coach and should continue to be the coach. I think he's earned the right to continue to be the coach here. But I struggle because ultimately priority number one next season will be to resuscitate this player. And I'm not sure it's something Rick Tocchet wants to do. So I'm not suggesting they're going to fire him, but I'm not feeling it. I would be surprised if the two of them were here next year, and that's just opinion.
A super chat from JT. I don't think it's that JT, but it says officially time to sell. Bye-bye Petey and Besser. Another one from Spadzilli says, you guys have both been around the team a long time. Were there no signs of Petey's commitment or that Petey's commitment might waver if it's not all injury related? I don't think there were signs that his commitment was going to waver. I think when it's human nature, I can't speak from fact, but if you're making $90 million, like, I could understand maybe your approach changes a little bit. Like, I don't want to believe that, but $90 million is a lot of money.
So what do you mean? Like, how do you think his approach might change? That now he's arrived and he doesn't have to try anymore? Like, I don't believe this is about the money. I think the money. I was always concerned, truly, Jeff, and I expressed this when the contract was signed. I was always concerned about Petey's ability to wear the weight of that deal, right? That I possibility that he would completely fold under the weight of that deal and the pressure associated with it. I don't know that this is about commitment. I'm not suggesting Pettersson doesn't care, but it's a lot. And it's a lot for a player that at times has shown a lack of mental toughness.
Yep. And maturity. And the general manager has pointed that out. And
maturity.
I'm with you. Like, I'm not, like, I want to be clear when I say I don't think that the money has changed him. I'm saying human nature. If you're making $90 million, I would think that maybe some people's outlook would change a little bit. But I think pro athletes are wired differently. I think I agree with you that it comes with a new set of pressures, obviously. He said all the right things when he signed, but, it really does match up to when this slowdown began. And it's not just this season. It goes back to last year's All-Star break. We all know that now. Whatever the case, it's frustrating to watch. It's painful to watch. You wish you could get inside his head and that he at some point would open up. I don't know, like year-end media availability is going to be fascinating, but I don't know that he's going to take us inside.
I remember Jim Rutherford either. No, he won't. And I remember JR talking about this with Jim Rutherford. And remember, they felt that his slowdown from the beginning of February onwards was the result of the contract weighing on him and not having certainty, right? And then they kind of flushed him out of the foxhole by suggesting they might trade him and forced him to make a decision. And it became, okay, now the pressure of the contract is weighing on him. So which is it? Was it not having a contract and not having the certainty and all the uncertainty around a decision? Or was it this, right? Because, we've talked about it before. While the conversation around the contract was always there hovering about it a lot, right? Like we asked about it the first day of training camp when we talked to him, and then I think it was the January when it got brought up again. Like it wasn't like he was facing those questions day to day, even though it may have been in his mind. But yeah, so that was part of it. It's like as soon as he signs the deal, he'll get better. Oh, okay, well he didn't. Then he struggled before the deal. He struggled after the deal. He had the reset of the offseason. He came into this season, and we talked, you and I did at the start of camp about the pressure that was going to be on PD the first 6 weeks, let's say, because everybody knows this is the first year of that new deal. And if you continue your play from the playoffs and post All-Star break last 6 weeks of this year with the new deal, it's going to be immense. And then the locker room unravels and all of it. And through it all, we've all been trying to get into his head. And I don't mean us in a question and answer form, but every fan is trying to figure out what the real reason is. They're, whether they want to blame the media, whether they want to blame Rick Tocchet, whether they want to blame, everybody's trying to come up with a solution and figure it out. And wow, a lot of theories, not a lot of answers.
All right, sit tight for a sec. I got to take care of a little bit of business here. We got the NHL trade deadline is coming up on March the 7th. This is coming Friday now. Daily face-off trade deadline special will take place from 8 a.m. until about 1 o'clock Pacific. So they've got you covered here online. The DFO live team going to be on top of it all, breaking down every move as it happens, instant reaction, expert analysis, all the behind-the-scenes stuff of trade deadline day. So tune in to Daily Faceoff's YouTube channel and follow Daily Faceoff on social in the days leading into the deadline. And then, of course, on deadline day itself, March the 7th. All right, it's time for Stat That Stands Out. And we gave you some from the road trip a little bit earlier on, but the stat that stands out is a presentation of Resurrection Spirits, and the stat that stands out to me is the fact that the Vancouver Canucks gave up 5 goals to the Anaheim Ducks and 6 goals, with Seattle scoring into an empty net. It's 11 goals in their last 2 games against 2 teams below them in the standings. That's just not good enough. And so, again, for a team that kind of thought it had itself.
Did Seattle fans get chicken? Did Seattle got that in Anaheim, right? Did Seattle fans get chicken for scoring 6 goals?
Do they? You're right. I know they do in Anaheim because I saw Ryan Strome's comments about taking his kids. I don't know what they get in Seattle.
Our friend Ian Furness has been texting us, and he's chiming in. So he's down in Seattle with the team. So if there's a promotion involving these guys scoring some goals, discounted Alaska airfare, he tells me that's pretty good. I'll take that for 6 goals.
Yeah,
Sekeres and Price. They've got a car sponsor who's basically giving, I think, $500 off the price of a car for every point PD scores. Like 5 points would get you $2,500, but it has to happen in one game. Not over the course.
The price of cars on that lot haven't moved in weeks now, which is unfortunate. Those guys have everything though, because I don't know if you've heard about this, but Sekeres and Price have their own gin now, courtesy of Resurrection Spirits. Resurrection Spirits is an East Van company doing great things in the spirit space. Check them out, support local. And yes, Sekeres and Price have their own gin. It's gin with character. Sekeres and Price is a gin with character? That's for another day. Designed for those who appreciate the true art of craftsmanship in every pour. Use code S and P for $5 off. Check it out at resurrectionspirits.ca. You can find the entire product line there. Easy to navigate website. It's fun. It's kind of got this old time look, and you click on the dry gin tab, and you will see the Sekeres and Price offering. Get it while you can. Once the bottles are gone, they are gone. And we thank Resurrection Spirits for joining us here at Rink Wide Vancouver. All right. Where does it go from here for the Vancouver Canucks with just 22 games remaining? I said a 4-game homestand. You'd like to think that matters, but they've been crappy on home ice all season long as well, although they did show a little bit of an uptick there just before the break with the win over the Leafs and a nice win over the Colorado Avalanche. And so we'll see if they can get their house in order and actually perform. But we should mention as well, Rick Tocchet has confirmed that Quinn Hughes tweaked something tonight. So that is not good news. That is not what Canuck fans want to hear in the aftermath of this road trip. The captain has tweaked something. And again, they don't play till Wednesday, but we'll get a better sense when they get back on the practice ice. it just feels like, yes, maybe they should put him back under bubble wrap for a little while here, and it's not about what he and they do the rest of this way. It is far more important about the big picture around this player and this team. So, yeah, that's unfortunate, but not a surprise, I suppose, given the way that they utilized him down the stretch tonight.
How many third period shifts? I think it was 5.
I think so, yeah. That's not many.
Be gentle.
And
be gentle with him.
We mentioned the trade deadline, and we just spent a lot of time talking about Elias Pettersson. We touched briefly on Brock Besser, but he looks like a guy that is, A, waiting for something to happen, and B, has all of this on his mind. No shots on goal, no goals on this road trip, just the 1 point and assist the other night in Anaheim. I don't know where it goes from here, but Wednesday night against the Anaheim Ducks, if he's still around, it's quite possible that could be the last time we see Brock Besser in a Vancouver Canucks uniform.
I hope not. Look, I understand the case for selling, and I don't know what they can get for Brock Besser. Look, if there's a compelling offer out there and they need to take it, great. But replacing goal scoring is hard, and I understand that he hasn't done it the last couple of weeks. But over the course of his time with the Vancouver Canucks, and he's not an old player by any stretch, he's been a 32 or 30 goal scorer over an 82 game sample size. That's just what he's done. Barring the injuries, he's been a 30 goal guy. And I just don't think you replace those players that easily. This team has got scoring right now. I would imagine if he signs, he'll come out of the break and he'll be scoring. Now, one of the problems for Brock right now is this team has no reasonable offensive center, right? So whether he's with Pettersson or Hedl or Suter or whoever, they don't have a dynamic center that's going to create offense. And Besser's just needs to be fed. He's not going to drive play on his own. So, a lot of his success next year, if he signs, or regardless of where he winds up, is going to be based on who he's playing with. So that's, you're only partway through the answer. I keep hearing there is conversation. Like, this is not over. It's not a dead issue that those conversations are still happening. I'm not going to sit here and say it's imminent, but I still think there's a 50-50 chance that he remains with the Canucks, not as an own rental. I don't see that scenario. It'll be sign him before the deadline or trade him.
I don't know if you saw this, but I wanted to shout out the Seattle Kraken as an organization. They brought in those 2 young officials that were assaulted in a minor hockey game in a Kraken Iceplex facility a couple of weeks back. You probably saw the video. It went viral. Certainly, it was a terrible-looking incident with the dad out on the ice shoving these 2 young kids that are just out there trying to make a few bucks and doing their job. Kraken did it upright, brought them in part with the NHL and Wes McCauley, an NHL referee himself. They were all behind this idea of getting them in, getting these 2 guys into the game tonight and treating them the way that they ought to be treated. So good on the Kraken for that. And apparently they're going to bring the 2 teams that were involved in that game to a future game, I think, when Montreal's coming through town in about a week's time. So I just wanted to mention that Kraken trying to do right by those 2 young guys, and we'll let the court handle the rest because it's that serious. Charges have been laid, and we'll see where things ultimately result. But just, you've been around enough amateur sport. You got the kid sport hat going there tonight. Just ugly, and no place for that kind of stuff in any sport.
No, and the Kraken do a lot right. They really do organizationally, top to bottom, whether it's the media side, the community relations side, they do a lot right. So not surprised that they did more of that here. And yeah, you're right. Like, they're disgusting stuff. There's just no place for it.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at our Bet365 line of the night. Bet365 is a proud partner of Rink Wide Vancouver. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION when you fire up your account. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. A bunch of games on the menu tomorrow, including one the Canucks are going to be keeping a very close eye on, the St. Louis Blues at Dallas. Now, it's back-to-back for the Blues, who were winners over the Los Angeles Kings on Saturday. St. Louis within a single point of the Canucks. They are on a 4-game win streak. They're going to be the tired team. Dallas is rested, and Dallas is playing well as well. So this isn't going to be easy, but if you're looking for value You might want to ride the Blues. Now, if they win, they're going to leapfrog the Vancouver Canucks, who are idle until Wednesday. So maybe you don't want the Blues to win, or maybe you want the Canucks to be sellers, and maybe you pull it hard for the St. Louis Blues. Whatever the case, you can get the Blues at plus 205 on the money line in Dallas. So some scoreboard watching. Calgary has been shut out in back-to-back games down in Florida and Tampa, and they have a quick turnaround. They're into Carolina. So it's not going to get any easier for the Calgary Flames, but Canucks are idle for a few days, but games will be played, games that matter in the Western Conference playoff race. So scoreboard watching for the next couple of days. And then, as we said, we'll keep an eye on Quinn Hughes on practice ice. Thatcher Demko, I think, is expected to rejoin the hockey club when they come off this road trip. So we'll see where Demko is and if he's an option to play on the homestand. Again, Lankinen has time between games, and Lankinen has given the Canucks a chance to win just about every time they run him out there. So he'll put this one behind him. I have no doubt about that. But it does get curious at the very least about where Thatcher Demko is in terms of his readiness to get back between the pipes. Haven't seen him since he pulled himself out of the game against Toronto midway through the first period on the 8th of February. So next up for the Canucks, it's a familiar opponent. It is the Anaheim Ducks again. Saw the speed that they presented in the neutral zone, caused all kinds of fits for the Canucks. We'll see what sort of adjustments that they can make. Now, Canucks, they benefit here, Farhan. The Ducks are in Edmonton the night before. So they're getting Anaheim on back-to-backs. That'll force the Ducks to make a goaltending decision. John Gibson played tonight, got lit up by the Chicago Blackhawks of all opponents, but Blackhawks were 6-3 winners on the pond. I don't know if that makes Canucks feel any better about things. The Chicago rolls into Anaheim and beats the Ducks
6 goals, buddy. 6 goals.
Yeah.
That's envious.
So we'll see what the Ducks look like on the second of back-to-backs and where they use Lucas Dostal, and maybe the Canucks see John Gibson, or maybe they see Ville Husso. Who knows? But that's next up for the Vancouver Canucks game on Wednesday. And again, it's a 7:30 face-off. Ducks will have to come through Vancouver twice still this season, Wednesday night, and then again they play an afternoon game, a 1 o'clock start on a Saturday in early April. So you're going to get your fill of the Anaheim Ducks before this season is through. But Canucks are licking their wounds here. Just terrible road trip. Now the health of Quinn Hughes is a factor in all of this, so has not been dull. That is for certain around this hockey club all season long, and it doesn't look like it's going to let up anytime soon here. But they started well, but unfortunately it's not a 1-period or even a 2-period game. It's a 60-minute game, and over the course of 60 minutes, this one, like so many others, got away from the Vancouver Canucks. 6-3, the final score. I think that's going to do it for Rink Wide. We'll certainly monitor the Canucks in these days leading up to the trade deadline, and we'll see where things go. I mean, how different do you think this club's going to look but by the time noon on Friday rolls around?
I mean, Besser's not sure how much value the other players have. People have talked about Pius Suter, and obviously Lankinen's done now in terms of his contract, and is Carson Soucy or Derek Forbort on the move? Right, Soucy still got term on his deal. Forbort's a pending UFA. Everybody wants defensive depth in the playoffs, so maybe there is a market for a Forbort, but I don't know that they're going to command a big-time draft pick or something like that coming back, where people are talking about a potential first for a guy like Besser. I don't know that Pius Suter brings back a significant piece. So, and what do you do down the middle, right? At that point, if you move a guy like that, you don't have centers to begin with, right? I mean, for the rest of the season. So Besser really is the big question. I'm hoping this team doesn't give up an asset to go find some goal scoring for this season. It would be money very, very poorly spent, but no lack of drama around this team. Nothing would surprise me with this group right now. Nothing. It's just, we know how ownership and management think. We know they are itching to do something to make this team better this year. But it'll be a fascinating few days, and 3 trades already. So,
yep.
Usually Rutherford and Alvin don't like to wait right until the final moment to get deals done. So if that kind of sparks something, what's happened in the last couple of days, in the middle of all of those conversations.
All right, we'll call it a night. 6-3, the Canucks fall to the Seattle Kraken. So the Kraken take 2 of 3 so far. There is one more meeting to come. Seattle has to come to Rogers Arena. So the I-5 rivalry, or the I-5-alry, not over for this season. They've been eventful games, and they've been fairly entertaining. You just wish that there were higher stakes at some point to truly take the rivalry to the next level. All right, Jake Lazar working hard behind the scenes. We appreciate all of his help. Farhan, thank you for another Saturday night here on Rink Wide. I know that we're going to get you back for a few more games here down the stretch. So twists and turns galore for the Vancouver Canucks, and we'll see where they sit the next time that you're on with us. But appreciate you hanging in there here on this Saturday night.
Thanks, buddy. Looking forward to the next one.
There you go. For Farhan Lalji, I'm Jeff Pettersson. 6-3, the Kraken over the Canucks. That's going to do it for this episode of Rink Wide Vancouver.